So, good morning. I am so happy to be here with you again. It just occurred to me, I was going to share something on Facebook last night and forgot to do it because I spend a lot of time laughing these days because so many things just have gotten to the point, when you have so many challenges one right after another. I don't know how you react, but eventually I just start to laugh. It's like, again, another, oh my. And it's kind of been like that for us. And I'm thinking that there are some really interesting side effects to spending so much time alone with yourself, especially those of us who are single, alone for really long periods of time causes some interesting things. And I just wanted to share this with you because I haven't had a chance to share it with anybody, and it just makes me laugh. So last night, I decided I wanted a piece of cinnamon raisin toast. And I frequently talk to my animals. I say that they're like a lifesaver, then it keeps me from talking to myself. But last night, I have never done anything like this before. So I'm talking to Teddy, my dog, while I'm putting slathering butter on my toast. And I look down, and this piece of toast has a hole. You know how bread opens up and has pockets in it, and sometimes there'll just be a hole as you slice it. There was a hole in this piece of toast in the very middle, which is kind of inconvenient when you're slathering butter. But anyway, I look down, and here's a hole in the middle of this toast. And I look at Teddy and I say, Teddy, this toast thinks it's the donut. And I swear, hand to God, I looked at the toast and said, do you think you're a donut? So now I'm talking to the toast. So far, the toast has not talked back. So I think I'm still haven't lost all my marbles. But anyway, so I just thought that was hilarious. You may or may not, but I just thought that was so funny. So anyway, today we're talking about acceptance. Sometimes it's acceptance of our craziness, but and this is your theme for the month, as Terry said, and that's what you've been talking about all month. And there are a lot of ways to look at this. And today we're going to look at it as a response to the difference between reality and expectation, which is exactly what acceptance is. If you know of Byron Katie and her book, Loving What Is, you've heard of her process, which she simply calls the work. And it's a way of doing this, of looking at the difference between reality and expectations, or the way that we want things to be. And at the beginning of one of her chapters, she has this statement: everything happens for me, not to me. And this is something I really believe. I know that people and circumstances and everything that's going on do not wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go out there and make Betty's day miserable. It just doesn't work that way. And this idea that everything happens for me and not to me, this is a key idea when we're looking at the concept of acceptance and the practice of acceptance. And I personally believe that acceptance is one of the most important practices we can learn. I found that as I have moved along in my spiritual path, when I was just starting to evolve and learn, it seemed like I was learning lots of new things all at once. But as I move along, as I get older and more seasoned in this spiritual growth thing, my lessons seem to come on a grander scale. They take longer. They're frequently big and cellular. And by that, I mean, there's something, it seems like everything I work on of late, the last 2 or 3 years, or maybe even a little longer than that, they are things that I've been carrying around for years. I may not even realize it until like now. that I've been doing something for 50 years. It's crazy to me that we do this to ourselves, but I think it's a very human condition. And so sometimes these things start when we're children and we're good at them. We've practiced them so long, we're good at doing this. And so when one of these comes up, I'm guided to look very deeply into my core beliefs to kind of unwind it, as we've woven these things into our lives. And so to unwind it and clean up the litter so that I can learn what I need to learn. And while I'm moving through these learning moments, I often create a mantra for myself, or a saying or an affirmation that I can say over and over, like when I'm driving or in my meditation time. And I remember sometime in my past that I adopted the mantra, acceptance is everything. So this topic has very special meaning to me. And when I think of acceptance, and at that time I was focusing on it, so I was saying acceptance is everything. I realize that it brings to mind lots of other concepts that we talk about all the time in Unity. Things like change, letting go, flow, vulnerability, responsibility, courage, wisdom, understanding, forgiveness, and faith. And I believe that in order to move into acceptance, we have to move into a space of comfort with all of these things. So today I'm going to talk about just what acceptance is, why we need it, and how to get there. So we all know that change is inevitable. And if we don't, or we just don't want to believe it, something will certainly happen very soon to remind us. That old saying that if you don't like the way your life is going, hang in there for a couple of days and it will change. Or if you do like the way your life is going, wait a couple of days and it will change. It's fairly accurate. Seriously, how often do in your life do things turn out exactly the way you plan them? Almost never. And as inevitable as change is, resistance to change is a pretty close second. It seems like that is often the default position of most people. And we get used to the things the way they are. And the longer they are the way they are, even if they're not perfect, we get used to doing things that way and having things that way. We create a comfort zone for ourselves. So when something comes along that threatens to shake up and change this easier comfort zone place where we are, we rebel. When I was worship coordinator and I had to change some policy for the worship team, which was about 50 ushers and greeters, some of whom had been doing that for 30 years or more, and I would need to change something, I would know that there was going to be some objection to whatever it was, with lots of excuses and reasons why it wouldn't work and why it wasn't a good idea. And I also learned that when they realized I wasn't going to change my mind, that for most of them, not all, but for most of them, a large majority of them, it would be probably about 3 weeks before they could adapt and somehow begin to act as this is what they had been doing all along and what they wanted the entire time. It's human nature. It's our lives. And in our lives, sometimes it takes us longer than 3 weeks to catch on to our own resistance. Sometimes we resist realities for years before making a change that would be beneficial to our lives. Sometimes we hang on to the victim role. Why do we do this? Because there's some kind of a benefit to doing this for us. It gives us what we think is some needed attention, or it saves us from doing some really hard work to get to a better place, or it keeps us from working through some really painful leftover grief. This resistance is the opposite of acceptance. And what do we know about resistance? Reverend Julianne said it a couple of weeks ago. What we resist persists. But it doesn't serve us well at all to pretend this thing that we don't like or didn't expect hasn't happened. To move on, we have to accept it and the feelings of disappointment or any other negative feelings that came with it. And you can stand up to it by affirming that you have all you need to meet this challenge. That is, it has no power over you, because God in you is greater than anything that you encounter. There's an affirmation in the Butterworth book, The Flow of Life, in the Flow of Life. And it says, I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. Say that with me. I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. It's obviously important for our balance and integrity, and for the state of our consciousness, for us to accept reality as it is. Common sense would dictate that there's nothing to be gained in the long run by denying the truth. But there's more to this acceptance if we want to live in the flow of life, which Butterworth espouses. And Eckhart Tolle in A New Earth explains just what that is. He says, acceptance means, for now, this is what this situation, this moment requires me to do. And so I do it willingly. In other words, the reality now requires a response. That response is acceptance. And this acceptance leads to or guides us to do something that is ours to do. So let me give you a simplistic kind of personal example of this. It's no secret to people who know me that I am not fond of housework. Cleaning and all that it entails is just no fun for me in any way, shape, or form. But it's just as true that I hate clutter and I don't like living in a dirty house. So this is the dilemma for me. If left to my own leanings, I keep everything neat and put away, but I let dust accumulate to a place where it's just too much and I just can't bear it anymore. And I know that hiding under the furniture is something I don't even want to know about. Eventually it catches up to me and I am forced to clean for several days in a row just to get to things where I want them to be. And there may be others of you like me out there. I empathize. And because I'm allergic to dust, which by the way is some kind of a cosmic joke for an Arizona desert rat like me, but I am allergic to dust. And when I clean and stir things up for that many days in a row, I frequently don't feel well for a few days after that. So Tolle says in his book that if you don't enjoy something, you either need to bring acceptance to it or leave it. Otherwise, your consciousness is at risk. I basically, at my core, believe this. I've done this with jobs, with relationships. So I'm thinking this is something I need to look at about this. So it was recently suggested to me that I take on my ongoing cleaning in 15-minute spurts. And so I began trying that. My condo is small, and I can actually do the dusting or do the open space vacuuming in just about 15 minutes. But of course, it doesn't hurt to take longer. And I find the hard part is just getting started. So then to finish the task, I can do that. So now as I take my movement breaks during the day from sitting at the computer all day long, I put in a 15-minute break to clean a little bit. I dust or I vacuum or clean the kitchen from the last meal, or I empty the dishwasher, clean the refrigerator shelves, whatever needs to be done. And if I get tired of doing housework that day, then I just roll it into the next day. And this has been a great success, I'm happy to say. I've lived in my condo for 27 years, and I have, for the most part, loved it. It's been a sanctuary for me. But as I went longer and longer without deep cleaning my house, I was getting more and more distressed about it. It was taking more and more of my energy, and I was really getting stressed out a bit about the way I felt about my living in a house that wasn't really clean. And I didn't feel I could leave it, and I didn't feel I could remodel it. And this new approach to cleaning this literally changed my life. I'm back to loving my home again. I enjoy walking around in a clean house. I literally just walk around thinking, oh, this is so nice. I think I may get over that sometime soon, but it's just wonderful. And I don't have to spend 3 days of steady cleaning and getting sick to do it. It's just an ongoing cycle. And it's like Tolle described it, coming into acceptance. Now, I still won't tell you that cleaning is the joy of my life. No, but it's easy now. It's fast and I can do it. I don't dread it. I can do it well in a short time. And I truly love the results. And it changed my consciousness. And I don't have to struggle with the idea of remodeling or hiring professional cleaners, which I don't have the budget for right now, or with moving, which I don't wish to do. And there's another valuable lesson here. We have to accept what we don't like before we can make it better. If I hadn't accepted that I wasn't going to be happy without living in a relatively clean home all the time, I wouldn't have figured out how to make it happen in a way acceptable to me. And another thing here, I had recently committed, I think I might have told you this the last time, I had recently committed to letting go of all my preconceived ideas. This played a part in my acceptance of having something that was mine to do in this reality. If we keep arguing with ourselves in the same old way, we will never move forward through the resistance that's keeping us from our most wonderful life. If I hadn't let go of the idea that I hated cleaning so much that I had such a low tolerance for any amount of cleaning, I wouldn't have considered just doing one small task at a time or on an ongoing basis, rather than feeling I had to do it all at once. And I would never have moved back into the consciousness of enjoying my home as a sanctuary again. And there couldn't have been a better time to do it, right? When we're spending so much time in our homes. So before I go, let me give you some quick tips on how to engage in acceptance or come to acceptance for yourself, and thereby create a more wonderful spiritual life for yourself. First, accept yourself. Begin to value all the parts of who you are. That means you acknowledge all of yourself, the good and the things that need improvement. Second, acknowledge your reality. Sometimes facing reality isn't the easiest thing to do, but acknowledging your reality will help you choose your dreams wisely and help you to achieve them. Next, practice radical honesty. When you admit to yourself that you're kidding yourself about something, you can begin to create a new, beautiful future. Denying your current reality won't make it go away. Fourth, identify your part. To fully accept your reality, it's important to acknowledge any role you may have played in getting to where you are right now. And be sure to forgive yourself for any way you've put yourself on a hook for being in a negative situation. Fifth, admit your mistakes. Remember that you can't fix anything until you admit there's a problem. Try to view your mistakes along the way not as failures, but as learning opportunities to get it the way you want it. Next, own your outcomes. Work toward owning every part of your reality, not just the things that need work, but also your strengths and successes. If we do anything, it's probably that we don't take time to celebrate those successes along the way. 7, don't let fear get in your way. Don't let fears, especially fears that about what others think of you, stand in your way. Next, count on your competencies. It's easy to look in a mirror and point out all of your flaws, or to look at yourself and point out all your insecurities. But to face your reality, you really need to start from a place of looking at and counting all the positives about you, all of your competencies. Next, this is really important. Let go of your biases. And I mean your biases about yourself, about what you can and can't do, who you are and who you aren't, and what you're like and what you're not like. Don't get caught up in the life you think you're supposed to have, but work on creating the current reality in the current moment you are living. Learn to understand your biases about yourself and let them go. Next, accept that challenges will always be a part of your reality, always. But wade into those challenges and get comfortable being there. Often the most challenging things hold the greatest opportunity for success. And finally, make a plan for reaching your goal. Include all the steps that you'll take to create your new reality. The bottom line about acceptance is that it's really the only way to move within the flow of life, the flow of spirit, and to keep going and growing as a spiritual being. It's the only way to cherish and care for the Christ consciousness we carry within us. And while you're working to come into acceptance in your life, remember that everything happens for you, not to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty, for those inspiring words about acceptance. And your cleaning story reminds me of the statement, by the yard, it's hard, but inch by inch, anything's a cinch.